with a Friday evening session that we're doing on the age of Aquarius. And come on in, and we're glad to have you aboard as we take a look at this. And we're going to begin something tonight that you should find very interesting. And that is that one who rules Aquarius, Uranus. A great planet that is steeped in mythology and filled with the ways of the New Age. It rules that which is the constellation Aquarius. So let's take a look at it. Let's look at it from the standpoint of what signs does it have to show us? And let's understand biblically that we can look at Uranus, we can look at Aquarius, because it says in Genesis that God created the stars and he said, let them be for signs. As we enter into Uranus and begin to understand it, we'll start to understand the effect that it has on the entire world. And as I look at it, I don't know how much of the turmoil that we see is as a result of its movement. I don't know. You have to begin to bring yourselves into an understanding of it, bring yourself into a harmony with it, because as you stand on the outside of it, you can conceivably feel that which is the shaking. It spins in the opposite direction of all of the other planets. It has a big chunk out of it, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But Uranus is known in mythology as the son of heaven. The son of heaven. And the son of heaven is returning. And the mythology is that the son of heaven is returning for his bride. Uranus was married to Gaia, G-A-E-A, which means the earth. You, Mother Earth. See, that's why a lot of times people say, oh, you know, God is a male and that sort of thing. God is not a male. God is called Father, and the earth is called Mother Earth. God is Father God, because the seed comes from the male and enters into that which is the female. So that which comes from God enters into the earth, and then there's life. So God is called male, God is called Father, and they're just symbolic names. It has nothing to do with sex or gender or anything like that. But here, then, according to the ancient mythology, Uranus and Gaia were married. In other words, God was married to the earth. God embraced the earth. Everything was one. That was the mythology of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. It's the same thing. There was a oneness between them and God. Everything was hunky-dory. Everybody was happy. And then along came one called Saturn. Saturn was one of the offspring of Uranus and Gaia. Was a child of Uranus and Gaia. And he had another name called Kronos. You spell it with an O, spell it with an H or with that. But a lot of you who, chronomatic, you ever hear that word? It has to do with time. Kronos means time. And he's portrayed with a sickle. And maybe you've ever seen him, Father Time. Did you ever see, like when you get New Year's, you see, oh, Father Time. You know, he's got a lantern and he's got this big sickle he carries. He's also known as the Grim Reaper. You ever see the Grim Reaper? Okay. What happens here in the story, the mythology of this, is that here is God, Uranus, married to the earth. There's a oneness between God and us. Along comes Kronos, or Saturn, with this sickle. And what does he do? He castrates God with it. That's pretty heavy stuff. Now, the reason for that myth is the fact that time and the worry and the fear of what's going to happen, and many of us are consumed in that now, or the fear as to what has happened, is that part which separates you from God and prevents that which is the divine seed from entering into all of us. So then, definitely, God is prevented from entering into us because of our worry, because of our fear of what is coming or what has been. So there's the mythology of Kronos and Uranus. Kronos castrates Uranus, and that's, of course, the end of the marriage. Goodbye, Gaia. Goodbye, Earth. No longer is Uranus married to the Earth. No longer is God married to you and I. He cannot impregnate us with the incorruptible seed. Why? Because of the fact that we are now separated from him. There is a barrier, there is a wall up, and there is no longer a marriage between Gaia, which is the earth, and Uranus, which is God. There is no longer a marriage between us and God. Well, to continue the story, here comes Venus. Oh, Venus, you know, love. And Venus, which is love, comes out of the ocean, which is God's deepest truth, and with the aid of the Cyclops, Cyclops, overthrows Saturn, kicks Saturn out of heaven, and returns Uranus to the proper place. Now, the Cyclops is the single eye. That's you ever see the ones with the one eye? Okay. Venus, which is love, comes out of God's deepest truth, and with the aid of the Cyclops, overthrows Saturn and puts God back into heaven, or puts Uranus back into heaven. And it's interesting because as Jesus says, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. And here we have this reference to the Cyclops. Now here, Saturn is thrown out of heaven. Uranus is returned back up into the place of heaven. God is now able to move. There's an interesting thing about the thing of Saturn castrating Uranus. There's a big chunk out of the planet Uranus. Tremendous chunk out of it. And scientists, physicists wonder, it must have run into something. And I guess that's part of the myth of the castration principle between Saturn and Uranus. Well, now what's this all about? Okay. Uranus is returned back up into heaven. And now in the year 1991, Uranus is 19 years away from returning to claim the bride. In the year 2010, Uranus will enter into the constellation Aquarius and be returned to the marriage with Gaia, you and me. This, for all intents and purposes, is the second coming of Christ, which will happen in 19 years. It's an astronomical fact. It's a law. There's nothing that anybody can do about it. That's what's going to happen. And there's an interesting thing. When the bridegroom Uranus returns for the bride Gaia, where will it happen? In Aquarius, which is the place of the waterman, where Jesus Christ was at the wedding, changing the water into wine. And that's why Jesus Christ said in Luke 22:10, when you see the man with the pitcher of water, which is Aquarius and the age that you're living in now, enter into the house, go to the upper room. Doesn't make any difference whether you believe it, doesn't make any difference whether you care about it. In 19 years, it's going to happen anyhow. It's an astronomical fact. You can go to the planetarium and chart it. You can pick up planetarium books, astronomical books. In 19 years, Uranus is going to embrace Aquarius, and it's going to happen. And it is going to have a monumental effect, and it already is having a monumental effect on the minds of people. That is a fact. That has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with spirituality, has nothing to do with the Bible. It's a fact. And it's going to affect you. And depending on where you were born, what sign you were born under, it will have an effect on you as an individual, and you will respond to things. And if you're not plugged into it, you'll go off one direction, and your life can be very difficult. If you are plugged into it, you can go off in another direction. So here then we have the return of this magnificent planet called Uranus, which is the bridegroom returning to embrace the earth, which is you. Second coming of Christ. And whoever you are a unique person. There is not one person sitting in this room that is the same. Each personality is uniquely different, and it all has to do with the makeup of when you were born and all of these complications that you're affected by these things. You say, well, I don't know if I'm affected by these things. Wait a minute. The ocean's affected by the moon. The tides are affected by the moon. Life is affected by the sun. When these things line up in these weird formations, whatever, they generate vibrations, they generate frequencies, and they affect the mind of man. They affect seawater. You're 80% seawater. Salt water. And so then, the question will be, how will this change affect us as individuals? And we'll look at that. We'll look at each individual sign. And I'll show you. And Joan is going to help me to show you the sign you were born under, how this could affect you. You say, well, I don't know if I believe that. It's irrelevant. I don't want you to believe it. I just want you, don't be afraid to listen to something. Don't be afraid to listen to something, because we're standing at this point where you got this war raging out there. And if you don't plug into this, you've got to plug into that. Because if you may not get involved in a war of that magnitude, but you'll get involved in one of them just as strong as that in here. Because there will be a war raging in your head every bit as vicious as anything you've ever seen in Iraq. And I'll tell you something right now. You may have the entire world blown up in a war. If your mind goes off a toot, if you freak out in one of your temper tantrums, you could care less about the war or anything else. You'll go right off, and your only concern will be right in here. I told people many times, you could be sitting and listening to the television and looking at all of these things, and they're going to bomb here, and the missiles are going to hit here, and there's a missile on its way to Israel. You know what would happen? The telephone would ring, and somebody would say, this is the police department. We have your son or your daughter or your mother or father down to the police station. You know what? You turn that television off like that, you couldn't care if a missile blew up the whole world. Off you go. And so what's relevant is not what goes on out there, it's what goes on in here. And that's what you have to plug yourself into. And for the most part, people are afraid of it. The most part, people don't believe in it. They want to continue the way that they've been. They want to do their thing and continue the madness and the insanity in the very same way that we're watching the world today. It's the same old thing. It's another war. It's just a more violent one, and they get more violent every time, but it's just another war. It's never, ever stopped. And it's a Christian country, it's a Jewish world, it's a Muslim world, but every time you turn around, somebody's throwing a bomb at somebody. Never stops. And this is the only thing that can stop it. And the only way it will stop is by plugging people into this and plugging yourself into this. Because I can guarantee you, you're going to have that same wild war going on in your head. You may have that wild war going on in your head next week or the day after tomorrow. It can happen anytime. It can go right. Did you ever lose your temper? Ever go just freak out and get wild and just don't give a damn about anybody else or anything else? Happens right in here. And this is where the wars, when they explode in here and there is no release and nowhere to save and no Christ consciousness to find your way into, that's when the wars in here manifest to become the wars that we see. Somebody decides they're going to push a button. Uranus means freedom from all of the bondage that has made you a prisoner to your past. It means freedom from all of the fear you've got in your head now. It means freedom from all of the guilt that society's tried to shove down your throat. It means freedom from all of the guilt religion's tried to give you. It means freedom from all of the guilt the government's tried to give you. It means freedom from yourself, from your own lethargy. That's what it means. That is coming like a steamroller across the sky right now, and if you get up there and plug into it, you'll plug into that freedom. It's coming. And doggone it, you can sit here in a church with all this stupid stuff about church and religion. I don't care about it. The heck with this. Go to the planetarium and say, show me it. And they'll show it to you. It's coming. And it's the change that's being made. For the first time in 2,600 years, the celestial heaven is changing. The last time this happened is when we changed to the age of Pisces, which was 2,600 years ago. That's how big a deal this is. And that's how big a deal it can be for you if you plug into it. And I'm not telling you to believe anything. I'm not telling you to plug into a religion. I'm telling you to use your doggone head. See that something is happening. Understand its relationship to what the ancients tried to teach. And give yourself this time to sit on the floor and raise yourself and come in contact with this dynamic power that's coming through the universe right now. But people say, well, I don't have time. You don't have time not to. You don't have time not to do it. Don't tell me you don't have time to do it. You don't have time not to do it. Uranus requires your attention, and it requires your meditation. It comes, according to the ancients, on what they said a short blast of lightning. Jesus said in Matthew 24:27, "For as lightning comes out of the east and shines unto the west from the Spirit, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." Lightning comes from the east, means enlightenment, understanding, wisdom. To the west, which means your intellect. In other words, that's what the word is. Inside of you, it manifests itself. So you begin to understand, you begin to develop a knowledge about these things, an understanding of these things, as lightning that comes from the east to the west. And that means you go from the fact of being Son of Man to becoming Son of God. When you raise yourself, and I don't care what anybody says, challenge any preacher, any pope, I could care less, Billy Graham, who cares? When you lift yourself up above the thoughts of your own mind, become God. Because when there is not one thought of you, that which is within you is God. Prove me wrong. Go above your thoughts and prove that there is not God there. Because what you'll see is nothing. What you'll hear is nothing. What you'll think is nothing. Pure bliss, absolute bliss. The cloud that surrounded Moses. The mountaintop where Jesus went. And where you find that God consciousness, there is no war, there is no fighting with people, there is no pushing buttons and sending missiles, nothing left that can come. Everything, all of the violence comes from the lower mind. It has happened to you in your house. It happens in wars among people. It happens because the lower mind of man and the ego of man and the I got to have my way of man will swing out at anything that gets in its way. It doesn't make any difference whether you're the president, whether you're a sheik or a king or whatever you are, you're going to swing out. And doggone it, the one thing that will really get you is the raising that you had from your parents. Because no matter how good your parents were, somewhere along the line they wanted you to stay away from them. Don't get too close to them. You got to stay with your own kind. You got to marry your own kind, you know what I mean? Soon as you were born, you had a color that separated you from other people. You had a label on you that made you a nationality. I'm Italian and I'm Irish and I'm all whatever I am. You got a label just like that. The most beautiful thing is each one of you has no name. You have no name. No name whatsoever. No label. You have no name. You have no nationality. Nobody's going to get mad at you. You have no religion. Nobody's going to... How can they get mad at you if you have no religion? How can you get mad at you if you have no nationality? Who are you? I am. Beautiful. Sure, you have to have a name to identify it, but unfortunately, as soon as you tell anybody your name, Polish or German, or you know, everybody's gangs up and decides don't have anything to do with those people. You know the way they are. They have these terrible tempers, whatever it is. To be free from the things which have hurt you, you've got to have the knowledge of the unknown. Because the things that you know are the things which have killed you. The things that you have learned are the things which in many instances have made your life miserable. Here he comes to free you from it. How can he free you from it? Because there is a vibration that is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And as you lift yourself up into it, you will be a part of it, exposed to it, and you will start to think in ways that you never thought before. You'll start to think with aspects of your mind that you never used before. Uranus. That's what it does. That's what it does. But you've got to expose yourself to the power. And Jesus Christ says in Matthew 6:22, you expose yourself to the power by practicing the single eye. If your eye be single, your body will fill with light. I love to say it, you know. I have never heard a Christian say it. Did you ever hear them? They preach all the time. They're on television all the time. Have you ever heard one of them say, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light? That's what Jesus said. Why are they afraid to say what he said? Have you ever heard them say, if you take away the key of knowledge because you don't enter within yourself? Have you ever heard them say it? No. They say you take away the key because you don't enter in our church. You don't read our Bible. See? You don't follow our rules. And you have to say, the hell with your rules, the hell with your Bible, the hell with your church. I'm following Christ. I'm following that which is the single eye. I am going to follow the instructions of Jesus Christ regardless. And when you follow the instructions of Jesus Christ, the Christian religion will call you a cult. Because he's the one that said, cast your energy to the right side. Take no thought. Enter within yourself. Separate from those things which are the thoughts of your mind. It is most important, if you're going to be swept into this new world order, if you're going to be swept into this new life, that you concentrate on the source of all things, which is God power within you. That's where it is. There's too many techniques, too many people giving you advice, too many classes, too many things you got to go read, too many things you got to go see. You spend so much time reading this stuff, you never do it. I do myself. I'm reading all this stuff. I don't need to read all of this stuff. What do I need to read all of this stuff for? Who knows? The guy that's writing it, that's what he thinks. Maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong. But I do know one thing. If I will stop and I will get away from all the techniques and all the classes and all the do this and do that and do the other thing, hit the floor, raise myself up into the place of holiness, I will know. And I do know. I will know, and I do know, and I understand the things that are spiritual. I can't predict what you're going to do. I stood up here and said, well, there'll be no war. Can't be a war. This is the age. I say it again, there can't be a war. It's not going to prevent these two from hitting each other over the head. They may go home tonight. He's got a Bible in his lap. How do I know? They're here. They look very holy to me. Hallelujah. They're sitting in the front row at church. Isn't this sweet? We're going to pray, going to meditate. Isn't this sweet? They may get home and hit each other over the head. They may throw a pizza at them. I don't know. It's just as much of a war as they're having over there, except they don't have missiles. But it's still the same thing. It's still violence. So I say there'll be no war. But what are you going to do when you get home? How do you know? How do you know how many temper tantrums I've had since the last time I saw you? And I do. I get temper tantrums. Hard to believe. You see? But we all do. See? Because we're people. So where can I predict? Who can predict what the human mind is going to do tomorrow? You can't. You can't. I learn as you go along. I learn. I may not be able to predict maybe what's going to happen, but I can predict one thing. I can predict that which is God's law. I know this is coming. That's for sure. Just like Halley's Comet, there's nobody can stop this. Coming. And I know what the effects are, and I know the ancient mythology of it, and I know the connection of it to the Bible. And I know what we have to do to prepare ourselves. There was a guy that wrote the Planetarization of Consciousness, and he said this: the man who is truly free makes no choices. He does what he must do. See, there's no choice to make. You do, because you know the truth that's inside of yourself. Say, well, how will I know the truth? How many of you have shoes on tonight? Nobody. Most of you have shoes on. There's not one of you that can look down and see that your foot is in your shoe. Well, some of you have. But how do you know it's in there? I can feel it. It's alive. It's a part of me. I know. I don't have to have faith about it. I know it. It's a part of me. See what I'm saying? If you stop right for a minute, how do you know you're alive? You can feel it. Inside of yourself, you can feel that little whirring going. Just feel it moving. How? You know. You don't have to have faith. The great thing religion teaches, you got to have faith in Jesus Christ. Right? Is that right? Right. Just wanted to show you there was some. Let me ask you something, having faith in Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ had 12 guys surrounding him. He told a whole bunch of them, in 3 days after I get killed, I'm going to raise myself out of the grave. Right, Bill? How many guys showed up? None. Not one. A lady came. What is this? Where is he? Who rolled the stone? Who's screwed the whole tomb? What's going on here? What? And here he stands. But not one of these guys showed up. What kind of faith? Bill, they lived with him every day. They worked with him, went to the bathroom with him, slept with him. They were one with it. You're going to have faith 2,000 years? They didn't have faith. Couldn't one of them got a pair of binoculars and just behind the let me check this thing? No, never showed up. Not one guy showed up. Peter, Paul, and Mary, no one of them showed up. So what is faith? You can't have faith because your mind won't let you have faith, because when you start thinking, yes, I believe it, there's another part of your mind that's going to say, baloney. I don't care what it is, when you have faith and say, I believe this, there's another part of your mind that says baloney. Because there's always doubt. You cannot have trust without doubt. It's the opposite end of the string. You cannot have up unless you have down. You cannot have in unless you have out. You cannot have left unless you have right. You cannot have faith unless you have doubt. Can't. It's impossible. But when you go above that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is the mind, you rest into that place where there is no faith, there is no trust, there is no doubt, there is no belief, there is nothingness, there is nirvana. That is God. That's why Jesus said, take no thought, because once your thoughts are gone, then you are free. And the changes happen within you. I tell you something, people say, oh, we sent out all this white light. What good did it do? They had a war. Look at you. I dare say, in those of you that I know, there's not one of you that would pick up a gun to hurt anybody. There's not one of you that would pick up a stone to hurt anybody. There's not one of you that would probably even hardly step on an ant, because you are filled with that which is Christ. And you sent this light out. For what? For peace. Stop. Don't hurt. Be peaceful. Be of Christ. Be of nature. You've strengthened yourself. And I'll tell you another thing that you've strengthened yourself about. You who have strengthened yourself in this absolute nirvana of peace have looked out and you have seen the demonstration of the lower mind and the pain that it inflicts on people it doesn't even know. People it doesn't even know. People who are living and going and coming, you don't even know. And you're saying, go get them, boys. Blow them up, boys. And they lay mangled, and you don't even see them. Don't ever know their names. Don't ever know their dreams. Don't ever know their wedding plans. Don't ever know their career plans. Never know. Go get them, boys. And you bail around and you turn your plane back and you come back. Had a great mission. And all of the broken hearts and broken lives and broken dreams. People we don't even know. People we don't... Well, we have a friend who has died. And we'll send a mass card, or we'll send a sympathy card, and we'll get flowers, and we'll go to the funeral parlor, and we'll all stand, and we'll pat each other, and we'll sob a tear. We can sit and watch the television and see bombs fall, and they die by the thousands. We have not one pang of guilt, because we haven't seen one of them, haven't seen one face. That's the human mind. That, my friends, is what the Apostle Paul said is God's enemy. It cannot obey the law of God. It is not subject to the law of God. So now we enter into the new age of the individual, which is Uranus. Deconditioned, liberation from the accepted. All of your traditions. Red, white, and blue, apple pie. I'm a Catholic, I'm a Protestant, I'm a Baptist, I'm a Pentecostal, I'm a Mormon, I'm what? About all of your traditions. I'm an Italian, I'm Polish, I'm German, I'm Jewish, I'm Irish. All of your traditions in a toilet with your traditions. Every bit of them in the toilet. Everything that's in your head. I told the people Sunday, you've got to take everything that's in your head, walk into your bathroom, stand on your head, put your head in there, and flush it. Let all of your ideas and all of your preconceived notions go down that toilet, because all it has done for anybody is kill and hurt and maim and be violent and make you suspicious of others and give you great big ulcers and make great big cancers and all of the wild things that go on inside of our bodies because of the stress of trying to be like they want you to be. They want you to be a good soldier. They want you to be a brave soldier. That's not Jesus Christ. And if you're here and you're planning to follow Christ, you can't be a brave soldier. You can't pick up a flag. You can't pick up a gun. You can only pick up that which is the world in the palm of your hands and raise it up into nirvana and bliss. Take it with you and raise yourself up into the clouds. You can't join this side. You can't join that side. Because remember something as we sit here tonight, and there are prayer services all over the world to bring our boys safely home. And you can't join a one of them unless you go to a prayer service that brings all the boys safely home. All of the girls safely home. All of the children, no matter what religion, no matter what side of the fence they're on, because that's all that God knows. God doesn't join this side or that side. And that's difficult. It's really hard for people to understand that. But God has the whole world. And every life, every living thing is equally as precious as everyone else. We can kill each other and say our side is right. That's Aquarius. That's Uranus. It says in 2 Corinthians 5:17, if any man be in Christ, That's Uranus. He's a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. And what this does, Uranus, and the effect it has on people, is that it's the great planet which correlates to individual freedom and liberation from the old bondages. And so what is liberation? What is Uranus then? Remember, we're talking about stars that God put. What is it? What is the liberation from? Saturn. It's a liberation from the effects of Saturn. You say, you don't even know what effects that you've been subject. Can you know that some of the lunacy you've been through may have been caused by vibrations from that planet that you've been open to and have touched you? I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about fortune telling. I'm talking about an astronomical scientific fact that half of your problems may have been because you were subject to that. And so what are they going to do? Tell you the truth, tell you how you might be able to raise yourself above it? No, they're going to give you tranquilizers. They're going to give you tranquilizers. They're going to give you drugs. Because we can't possibly believe in this. And that's our problem. And you know something? We don't. And we can't possibly. So what do we? We believe in them. Because they are. They're the leaders. They're the doctors. And he must know. I'll never forget one time when my mother died. She went to a fine doctor. And she got to a point where she was having trouble raising her hand. You know, she'd take her coffee and she couldn't stir the cup and she'd talk with a slurred speech. And I said, what's the matter with you? She's like she was drunk. And then she got to the point where she couldn't pick up a spoon. And she would talk funny. And we thought that there was something wrong with her mind. So we took her to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist said, Mrs. Donahue, sit over there. And he said, smile. And she smiled. He said, there's nothing wrong with her mind. She's overdosed on drugs from a doctor. She's taking these water pills. And she was taking all different kinds, and he had forgotten what kind he gave her the last time, and she's on 3 different ones, and all the potassium got out of her body. There was nothing left. But she took them faithfully because he said so. He had to be right because he was the family doctor. Couldn't possibly be wrong. See? And so we all do. You're going to put your faith in your government. You're going to put your faith in your church. You're going to put your faith in the law. You can't possibly be wrong. And as you do that, you miss the tremendous implications of not only your life subjected to this, but the world subjected to this. And the change that will come. Saturn, and I'll finish with this, is those parts of your life that have conditioned you to think as you do. Society, family, religion, expectations of what's coming. It's all Saturn. And Saturn is the enemy of heaven, the lower mind. Saturn is the status quo. Uranus upsets the status quo. And this is what your choice will be. If you decide to stay on the lower aspect, you'll subject yourself to that. If you decide to raise yourself, as Jesus Christ said, up to the Son of Heaven, up to the single eye, you'll subject yourself to that, and you'll be lifted and rescued out of all of this insanity. Saturn seeks to hold you in bondage to the things that you have been held in for all of your life, and Uranus seeks to break you free. And I'm telling you something that's thousands of years old. I'm telling you something that's written thousands and thousands of years ago. We'll go on. Thank you.